Since the beginning of time, Burn has been one of the most iconic archetypes in Magic, but unfortunately it does not translate well into Commander at all. 1 mana for 3 damage is great when your opponent is at 20 life, but a lot worse when you have 3 opponents at 40 each. So for years, Burn has been relegated to being the butt of jokes, the punchline. Yeah, I'll build Burn, you'll build Coldblade, right? Ha ha ha. But in 2025, this is the year we turn that laughter into screams and the smell of Phyrexian barbecue. Snowfin, Mayhem Dominus, is the perfect Burn commander, efficient, difficult to remove, and scales so well to the format. He gave me the confidence to take Burn as far as I can in Commander. Maybe we can tussle with the big boys, the biggest boys in Bracket 4. We'll see. So let's take a closer look at Sulfium, the first ability here. Doubling all non-combat damage allows us to play a ton of symmetrical burn spells. For example, a rolling Earthquake for 3 will keep Sulfium alive while dealing 6 to all your opponents. And if you want to go bigger, or if your opponent starts targeting Sulfium, we can always use the second ability to discard 2 cards and give him indestructible. Now, in mono red, discarding 2 can hurt a lot. So we need some cards to help recoup this loss. We will share them later. But yeah, speaking of mono red, we really have the short end of the stick here. Everything is difficult up here in the mountains. You have the worst card draw, the worst spot removals, mediocre ramp, pretty much below average everything. Now, to bridge this gap, we'll need to borrow the power of colorless. And for some reason, colorless is just better than red at most things. So this deck, unfortunately, will be relatively high cost in terms of budgeting. But in terms of playing, it's not too difficult. The play style is fairly straightforward, although you would have to gauge when to do things and when to lay low. Because I want to mention that I see a lot of lists online playing these really aggressive, almost group slug effects like, what's it called? Sulfuric Vortex? Yeah. And you can play that early with Sulfium. You can put a lot of pressure on your opponents. But in this deck, we are avoiding that just because in a group that knows what they're doing, when you run out of the gate like that, things won't get answered. Your commander will get removed. And when you're playing mono red, you can't really trade resource like that with your opponents. Right? Imagine not even 3, just 1 or 2 opponents gunning you down because you're taking out their life total. You will not come out ahead, most likely. So in this deck, what we're doing is, for the most part, we are laying low, accumulating resources. And once we build up the resource, we can find the opportunity to have one huge explosive turn with burn spells or with something else. And if that works, sure, maybe our opponent's half dead. We just need maybe 2 burn spells to kill them. But if not, then we back off again. We answer things, we control the board, and look for a second chance. So with no further ado, we're going to start with the deck. But please like and subscribe. But more importantly, please let me know if you prefer this style over the animated style of videos. All right, to start things off, we have a pile of cards for resource accumulation. Now, this is card draw, ramp, and all that. This actually 30 cards. It's interesting because when I was building this deck, I had a kind of a skeleton, and then I played this deck for over a year, probably more than 30, 40 games, just to test things, and whatever I felt like was missing, I would cut cards and exchange and upgrade. And I didn't really count how many of each card I have until today, when I realized I have more than 30 or maybe 29, around 30 of these resource gathering cards. And honestly, just building the deck from scratch, I would never do this, but it seems like this is what we need for the deck to function, to power the deck. This is like the vegetables. Unfortunately, again, in other colors, you wouldn't need this many. You would need maybe 15 to 20. But in this case, in mono red, we kind of have to play these to get everything to work as intended. So starting off, we have ramp, and first we have, of course, Soaring, Mindstone, Arcane Signet. Nothing too special here. The Glare. I think this is okay. All right, Glittering Stockpile is worth talking about just because it's the competition for 3 mana rock is fierce. They print so many good ones. But what's nice about this is I think it fits our playstyle well because this allows us to store mana. And if this can stay around for a while, you can easily crack it for 4 to 5 mana to power out one of those big turns, which is nice because, again, our playstyle, we are laying low, and then once in a while, boom, take a big turn, and then lay low again and take another big turn. and this card fits that. Commander Sphere, Throne Dynamo, one of the best mana rocks, I'd say, in monocolor, but not better than Throne of Eldraine. Throne of Eldraine is just ridiculous. 5 mana. Now, tapping for 4, the restriction of only being able to play the colored spell is a bit annoying. It can definitely come up. But, I mean, you're playing this on turn 5, on tapping on turn 6 with 10 mana, which is just ridiculous. And also the draw effect is not the best, especially considering how this the throne taps for 4 mana. So you're paying 7 mana to draw 2. But in a pinch, I've activated this before. Yeah, so definitely can come up. Next up, Navigation Orb, 5 mana Cultivate. This is quite expensive for what it does, but again, I am huge on hitting your land drops. And usually, by turn 5, turn 6, you are starting to miss land drops. So using this basically gets you 2 lands, right? Because if you get a land in hand when you don't have a land, that's a ramp spell. So yeah, I still think it's pretty good when I played it. Next up, Burnished Heart, even more expensive, even clunkier, but man, just getting 2 lands into play, this is not something Mono Red gets to do, and it feels so good. So it's still in. Solemn Simulacrum never feels bad to draw. I mean, it's getting kind of power crept, right? There are better cards now, but again, in Mono Red, our standards are lower, definitely. And yeah, it's a perfectly serviceable card. Pendant of Prosperity. This card I talked about in the video. I've actually never got to cast this card because I just added it. I've seen my opponents use this to great effect. And on paper, this card is just ridiculous. So maybe you're not so familiar with this card. We'll read it. So when you cast it, it enters the battlefield under the control of an opponent of your choice. And pay 2, so now the opponent can activate this ability, you cannot. They can pay 2 to basically explore. But when they do that, you can do the same. You can draw a card and put a land onto the battlefield, not tapped. So even if your opponent just activates this once, you got your pretty much 3 mana value back. And sure, you can do politics, you can make deals, but because, I mean, if I'm on the table, someone plays this, I would want it, and I would want to activate it, because if I don't, someone else takes it, I'm really far behind. Yeah, so the politics is huge here. But even if you don't want to do politics, you can just give it to someone with spare mana, right? Someone with open mana that doesn't seem like they're using. They're just going to pass it on tap. Yeah, give it to them. It's hard for anyone to resist the temptation of this free value. And also, if you see someone struggling mana screw, give it to them. So yeah, this card, I can see it being incredible. Gauntlet of Might, so now it comes to 3 mana doublers. Now this is definitely not necessary. This is like half the budget of the deck. So I think, honestly, 2 mana doublers is enough, because these are super high risk, high reward. You play them, usually you won't be doing too much that turn, and then your opponent will most likely try to remove them. But if they don't, you get one of those huge turns. So I do think 2 should be enough, or you can play, Extra Planar Lens, but that one is a little bit riskier. But yeah, Gauntlet, and Cage Sun. Cage Sun is 6 mana, but it's nice because it allows your non-basic lands that tap for red to also tap for double. So yeah, you pay more, you get more. Next up, Spiteful Repossession. This is not a burn spell. This is actually a ramp spell. Because if you read it, the floor is not high because sometimes your opponents don't have more lands than you. But when they do, we don't need that many because we can, on the turn we play this, we don't have to drop the land. We can play this first. Now with Sophium on the field, even if your opponents are 1 or 2 lands more than you, you're easily making 4 to 6 treasures. Now if 1 or even 2 opponents are playing green, you are going off. Yeah, this can easily be used as a ritual almost. You're getting your mana back, or you can store the mana for future turns. This is Mana Geyser. Yeah, Mana Geyser. Yeah, the big red. I think the most iconic spell in big red. You are making mid-game easily 10 mana, net 10 mana, and this can power out a huge turn. You can either finish your opponents with big X spells, or you can just play a lot of things. Because in this deck, cards are expensive. And for us to get utility, it costs just extra mana. Because we are relying, again, a lot on colorless stuff. So Mana Geyser seems good. Season of the Bull, this card doesn't do too much, but is like a bit of everything. Now, the third mode, I don't find it to be too useful. It can be okay, but because we don't have a lot of small spells that we are, and also 2 damage becomes 4, it's only hitting creatures, it's not that much. So usually the typical use for this would be pay 2 paw here to get 2 cards for 2 turns for this turn and next turn, and at the same time getting 3 tap treasure tokens for 5 mana. I think it's reasonable value. Yeah, because you're getting cards and mana to use the cards for the next turn. Next up, Thematic Compass. Again, I talked about this. This card is, I think, super underrated just because, again, if you're ramping and missing land drops, what's the point? I think it's better for you to just tap 3 mana to basically, it's like a Darksteel Ingot, right? Every 3 mana you pay, you can get a land and play it. And more importantly, late game or mid game, actually, this can flip into a Maze of Ith, a better Maze of Ith. So for 2 mana, you basically, it's like Rampant Growth, but you get a really, really good land. So I think this card is definitely worth playing in especially monocolor decks without green. Next up, Kozilek's Command. This is one of the best resource accumulation cards here because this can be done at instant speed and the other modes are flexible. Right? Because for a lot of the other cards, you're making treasures, but you're doing it on your turn and you're spending mana, so your shields are down. But with this, it basically doubles your mana, right? Well, -2, and then you can, say, create 10 Eldrazi Sound tokens and untap with 18 mana. But at the same time, you're also keeping your options open, right? If you have to kill something, you can remove Exiled Target Creature or Graveyard Hate. But if none of that comes up, we can just dig for a big spell, right? So we are making a bunch of chump blockers. We're making a bunch of Eldrazi spawn that can crack for mana. And we're also digging for a big burn spell to use with that mana. So this is honestly one of the best new cards for this deck. Jeska's Will. Not much to say about this, just a ridiculous magic card. We have, I think, 5 game changers in here. So we are bracket 4, but I believe 2 of them are pretty cuttable, are not necessary in this deck. This one is, though. This one is just amazing. Big Score. And because, so now we're going into card filtering. Because our deck, we have lots of small stuff that we don't want late game and lots of large, huge spells that we don't want early game. So being able to filter the cards is nice. Like, for example, early game, you draw a huge burn spell, you probably want to discard it. And at the same time, late game, if you draw a Arcane Signet, you can discard that and draw 2 cards. And also storing 2 mana for you is super relevant. Yeah, Unexpected Windfall, same card. I'm not playing the instant, the sorcery speed ones, only the instants, because in this deck we're trying our best to operate at instant speed to be able to respond to things. So keeping your options open, you respond if you have to. If you don't, then you do a Windfall. I think is the best way to approach. Risk Factor. Yeah, Risk Factor. It's a cool card. I mean, it's Punisher, so lots of people don't like it. But when your opponents see you're playing a burn deck, they usually probably wouldn't want to take 8 damage, especially not another 8 from the jumpstart. So chances are you get to draw at least 3 cards from casting it and jumpstarting it, which is decent, and you also just burned 8 damage. Also, there are times where you don't want them to let you draw. You want to burn for that 8. So both sides can be useful. And overall, I think the value is decent, and especially considering that you can discard it, right, to Sophia or other discard effects, and it can still be relevant in the graveyard. So I think overall this card is fairly good in this deck. Next up, Sandstone Oracle to refill our hand. This is the price we have to pay in mono red. This is actually pretty good because early game, again, we are dropping lots of mana rocks. We are discarding to Sophium. So to refill our hand is nice. Mid game, usually someone is at 6 cards. Maybe someone's at 12. Sometimes you hit the jackpot. But usually this card can help you refill pretty well. And sure, the cost seems expensive, but it's actually not so bad in this deck, especially if you look at the next card, Kozilek. Yeah, this is for refilling our hand. And it's a decent threat and kind of a control piece. Even though this Kozilek draws more hate than it deserves. I mean, I'm not countering anything that's not hurting me, right? But usually your opponents are like, oh, Kozilek is there. He's going to counter everything. We have to kill Kozilek. You don't. Just don't target my stuff. And yeah, again, this is 10 mana, but with the kind of ramp and acceleration we have, we can get this down pretty much turn 6, turn 7 the latest. And that's usually when you need to refill. So yeah, great card. Cross you up to 7. Next up, yes, the One Ring, of course. Now the One Ring, I'll be honest with you, I think the One Ring Commander is a better format with the One Ring banned, just because it's so ridiculous. You can take any deck, pretty much take out a card from the 99 and put this in, and the deck is arguably better. Now, I try not to play the One Ring in any deck that doesn't have player synergy with it, but in Sophium, I think it makes a lot of sense, just because you can play it and then you can burn the table, meanwhile you are untouched. And at the same time, we do need a card draw to be able to keep up with those blue and green decks. Yeah, so they will help us bridge the gap a little bit. Next up, the wheels. Misfortune, Fortune, and Runehorn Hellkite. So when I was saying earlier how the Gauntlet of Might was like half the budget, Wheel of Fortune is another, I'd say, 20%. So if you cut Wheel and Gauntlet, this deck is actually fairly budget friendly, I'd say. And Wheel is honestly not necessary. It's a great card, but I think honestly Runehorn Hellkite is better. And we're playing Wheels once again because we are discarding and we are dumping our hand fast. Usually I don't play Wheels because they're risky. They're refilling your opponents. But in this case, it makes a lot of sense. Now, Runehorn is the best one because you can discard it and use it later. And also, being instant speed is huge because when you wheel, you always want to be the first person to use those cards. Right? So even though it's 6 mana, I think it's more than worth it. Yeah, wheels. And that's all for our, what's it called? Resource accumulation cards. Yes. And again, it's about 29 to 30 of them. This is the vegetable. We have to eat it. But now we can make time for some fun stuff. So now it's time for the fun part. And here is the core of the deck that is our game plan. The cards that help us advance our plan, including removals that allow us to control the game and also burn spells, finishers too. So let's start off with Guff Rewrites History. Now this one is like Chaos Warp, which I have. But Guff Rewrites History is, I think, a bit underrated. Sure, it cannot deal with enchantments, but at the same time, you can do one permanent per opponent. And you can even do something from your own board. Right? Because we have a lot of treasures, we can just tuck a treasure and hope to hit something big. Or, if your One Ring becomes too big and you're taking too much damage, you can tuck the One Ring. So I think this is a premium removal in red. And of course, we have Chaos Warp. Blasphemous Act, pretty typical, but in this deck, actually, Blasphemous Act can be used to win games when comboed with some of the cards we'll go over later. And next up, Chain Reaction. I really don't want to play this card because it's 4 mana, it's not even cheap, and it's inconsistent. Sometimes you don't kill what you need to kill. But unfortunately, in red, I think they just printed Blasphemous Act and then forgot about red. So they didn't really upgrade the removal, the board wipes. So we still have to play this until Wizards remembers us again, I guess. Next up is Starstorm. Starstorm is pretty much the best removal next to Blasphemous Act, I'd say. And mostly because of the instant speed. And also, when you have Sophium on the board, you don't have to pay too much mana into X. Yeah, and cycling is nice too. So just overall, a really, really efficient piece that also quite flexible. Spiteful Banditry. This is like the red, what's it called? Meat Hook Massacre. Yes, exactly like that. Because when it enters, you can deal X damage to each creature. And then for each creature that dies, you get a treasure. So a lot of power. Except this is not like Meat Hook because it only triggers once a turn. It's actually a lot worse. But just getting the one treasure from cast and then once in a while, the treasure there, the treasure here, it's not bad. So again, decent removal. And all of this damage-based stuff is doubled by our commander. Why not? Next up, Reckless Endeavor. This card is ridiculous. Yeah, I rolled 2 D20s. Last time I played, I remember I rolled a 1 and a 3. But even then, with the help of our commander, we still wiped the board and got 1 treasure. And once in a while, you just hit the jackpot. Because the board wipe side, choosing the number you choose for board wipe doesn't have to be high when you have Sophium. It can just be 3 or 4, and then you can maximize the treasure output, which can be super useful for our big turns. Oblivion Stone, the old staple from 15 years ago, maybe even older, but still we have to play it. I know we have a lot of artifacts, we have a lot of permanents too, but unfortunately we just can't answer some of the permanent-based decks. Like, for example, imagine Super Friends, imagine Sagas. you just cannot deal with them. So we need a panic button, and that's what Oblivion Stone is. I don't want to use it, but when I have to, I will. And after that is Ugin. Now this is just I think one of the best board wipes in decks that are, I think, with lots of artifacts, right? And especially if we don't have a lot of permanents of any color. Yeah, Ugin just wipes. It's almost like a one-sided board wipe most of the time. It kills our commander, but everything else on our board pretty much stays for the most part. And yeah, in mono red, you do need something like this. Next up, we are starting to not just burn creatures, but also players. Electro Dominance is the first one. It's a bit expensive, not super efficient, but what's nice is the flexibility. It's instant. It can target planeswalkers, creatures, players. And also you can use this to drop something. It allows you to cast a spell with mana value X or less. So imagine Electro Dominance, something for 5, and then dropping a Gauntlet of Power at the end of turn, and then you untap with double mana, and you can win from there. So it's not super efficient, but it's got some play and some tricks that you can do. Rolling Earthquake. This is the only Earthquake I play. I don't play actual Earthquake because I want to be able to kill flyers. Now, if someone pulls out a Portal 3 Kingdom deck against me, I will cry. But generally, this is also a decent win condition and a perfectly serviceable board wipe. The Roller Crusher Ride. Now, Delirium happens in our deck, but not super quickly. So I'm evaluating this card just based on the second ability. When it enters, it deals X damage to each of up to 3 target creatures. That's already a pretty good removal ability. Getting 3 targets. Unfortunately, it cannot burn players. But yeah, just being able to remove things. And usually nobody would target it, right? Because it's not on. But when it's online, when you combine this with your commander, with Sophium, we're dealing 4 times damage. So yeah, it's a pretty nice removal with a high ceiling. I like that. Delayed Blast Fireball. It's got Foretell, and you can pay 6 to deal 5 damage to each opponent and each creature they control. And with our commander, it is 10 damage. In a pinch, you can also use the 3 mana version, which is 2 damage, times 2, 4 with our commander. But unfortunately, we only have 1 Foretell card in this deck, so our opponents know what it is. But it is pretty efficient at what it does. And also, we do have a ton of exile-based synergy. Like we can exile cards from the top, we can cast from exile. So yeah, I think this card is quite good, all things considered. Miku Spark, which is Chandra's Ignition. When you target that onto our commander, it is 10 damage to everything and each opponent. Just a really efficient, explosive damaging spell and board wipe. It's a bit risky because your opponents can target our commander in response with removal. But again, we have an Indestructible, so it's less risky this way. Molten Disaster, this is probably my favorite card in this deck, just because it completely changes how the game works. Because usually, I'm sure you've all seen those late game players with probably Simic decks, where they can pass the turn holding up 12 mana with 3 counter spells and 2 removals, and they feel invincible. And this is the card you get them with. Split second. There's nothing they can do, unless there's a morph or something. But yeah, there's pretty much nothing your opponents can do once you put this on the stack. So this is something we need in the late game just to get around counterspells, get around all the responses, and yeah, finish the game. Comet Storm's nice instant speed. Usually this itself won't be killing your opponents, but what's nice is you can end a turn Comet Storm for, say, 14 to 16 damage, and then untap to do the killing. Now you can surprise kill. And imagine an opponent sitting at 30 life feeling pretty safe. Yeah, you can get them with this. Jaya's Immolating Inferno, this one is not as good. Still decent just because of how efficient it is. 3 targets, right? When you're doubled in the mid game to late game, you can easily deal 10 to 20 damage to each opponent. And that can kill people. And also in a pinch as a removal. Unfortunately, you do need your commander to turn this on, so this might be one of the weaker burn spells, but for now, it's still serviceable. Crackle with Power, on the other hand, is probably one of the strongest burn spells here. Yeah, the way it scales this is a burn spell designed for commander. Yeah, because you have to do the math, but maybe I should have done it earlier. But the math works out as if you pay, say, 11 mana, it is 15 damage to each opponent. If you pay, is it 14? Yeah, 14 mana, it is 20 damage to each opponent. And with your commander, all that is doubled. You can easily finish the game with just this one card. Now, this next card here is a bit of a curveball. Sometimes it will do nothing, but when it's good, it's really, really good. It can finish the game. For example, if you're casting, so I say an Earthquake for 5, and then you target, for example, Sophium with this. And what happens is Sophium will take 10 damage from Earthquake, and Arc Bond will double that again, which is 20 damage to everything. Every player, well, not you, because it's half for you, but it's double for your opponents. So with that play, you just dealt 10 plus 20 damage to each opponent and each creature on the board. Yeah, so super explosive and can get people out of nowhere, just 3 mana. Pyrohemia, this is one of the best, I say best enchantments in the deck. The best, I say stacks pieces almost. Because with this and Sophium on the board, no one is keeping creatures. Right? They cannot do anything. Because Sophium is indestructible, so its Pyrohemia won't die. And until they answer one of these 2 permanents, their life total will keep going down, and they will not be able to stick any creature, anything on the board. Pyrohemia. Mana Barbs is the only, I'd say, stacks-ish enchantment that I play that is only for the damage, just because it does so much damage. It's, yeah, I mean, if your opponent is ramping each turn, they're probably taking 10 to 20 damage just to cast their things, and they cannot afford to do that. So with this on the board, your opponent really, their clock is ticking for them, and they have to answer this or Sophium or watch their life go down, because it is 2 damage per land when doubled. Now, Repercussion, this is almost like a combo piece, and this is what works with our board wipes. Usually when I play this and a board wipe, the game is finished, because the damage is doubled from the board wipe to the creature, and then when it goes through Repercussion and is directed to the controllers, it's doubled again. And once again, this is only for your opponents, because it doesn't happen for us. So yeah, this is one of the bigger win conditions. And also Mizzix Mastery. We are not a spell slinging deck, but we have a lot of spells. And the base mode of just 4 mana to recast a spell from graveyard is already good. But late game, if you can overload it, if you have a full graveyard and overload it, the game is pretty much over. You get so much value, you get so much mana that, yeah. So I think Mizzix Mastery is a solid card, even though it doesn't, like on paper, it doesn't have too much synergy with what we're doing here. The next up, Dictate of the Twin Gods. I don't like symmetrical effects, just because in mono red, we don't have much life gain, and we can die pretty quickly, and this doubling damage to everyone is risky. But the flash is what changes things, because end of turn you flash, and untap, you have a decent chance of just finish the game right there. Because you have Sophium plus this, that's 4 times damage. Any burn spell will do. So yeah, Dictate of Twin Gods, but do not play this when you know... So yeah, Dictate of Twin Gods, don't just drop it. Only drop it when you're ready to finish the game. Torov, God of Fury. This is quite similar to Repercussion from earlier. It is worse, but it's a decent body, and yeah, and any damage, any excess damage is dealt to your opponents. Once again, we do that double, which can turn any board wipe into a lot of damage. And lastly, Fiery Emancipation. This is the backup for our commander if it dies too much. Yeah, it's 6 mana expensive. If you drop it, you probably have a turn where you have to wait, and hopefully your opponents don't blow this up. But if they don't, again, any burn spell will probably finish the game. So this is the package of burn, control, and all that. And this is how we win the game. Next up, we have some miscellaneous utility. All right, next up, we have some miscellaneous utility. Just, say, protection for our commander. Swiftfoot Boots, Lightning Greaves, can you see? Yep. And Deflecting Swat, of course. Bolt Bend, almost as good as Deflecting Swat. And then Tybalt's Trickery. Yeah, you can really get people with it. The red counterspell. Next up, Vedalken Ori. I think this card is, I mean, there's a lot of debate around this card, but in this deck, I think it's excellent. The reasoning is that when you're playing at a disadvantage when it comes to, your value engines and your card draw and stuff, how you bridge that gap is through better decision making. And Vedalken Ori allows us to make better decisions because we have time. Right? We don't play the cards until we absolutely have to, which is huge in multiplayer. So I think this is definitely worthy of a spot in this deck. And lastly, we have Underworld Breach. Now, this is one of the game changers that I don't think is necessary. So on paper, it's amazing, but when I played it, it's been a decent value piece. It's like a, it's like a regrowth, but it's never a game ending just because of, exiling 3 cards from our graveyards, and also our spells are not cheap. So I usually use it as a regrowth. But sometimes if you have something like, for example, Jessica's Will or Mana Geyser in your graveyard, this can definitely go off. So yeah, I'm still testing this card, but I do think it's not, again, if you care about game changers, this is not necessary in the deck. And finally, we're on to lands. And I believe we have 38 lands in this deck, and a lot of non-basics. Because if you're playing against some of the more disadvantaged colors, like mono red, mono white, you have to take every piece of advantage you can get. Every little bit, every inch, you have to just use it. You have to maximize it, and nothing does that better than some of these non-basic lands. Now, Valakut Awakening is just amazing. I think this goes into pretty much every red deck, but here is even better because we can do the filtering. Shattered Skull Smashing is a burn spell. Why not? Pinnacle Monk. Now, 5 mana is super expensive. I don't usually use the front side that much, but with these MDFCs, the ones from Modern Horizons, and also same with Shattered Skull actually, you can pay 3 life for it to enter untapped. This makes it extremely close to a mountain. It's almost, the difference is negligible. So the opportunity cost is low and the floor is high. I think there's no reason to not play these cards. Boseiju, this card is super expensive when it comes to tempo and life loss. I mean, enters tapped, colorless, and costs 2 life per tap. But the payoff, I think, is worth it. Late game, if you're tapping out for a huge burn spell and it gets countered, your game is pretty much over because your opponents see what you can do and your shields are down. So you don't want your stuff countered. Boseiju is the way. War Room, draw cards. We need all the card draw we can. So War Room is, yeah, solid choice. You only lose 1 life because our commander is mono red. This card seems tailor-made for monocolor decks. This one is, what's it called? Spine Rock Null. Yeah, Spine Rock Null. What this says is it enters tapped, Hideaway 4. So Hideaway means you can look at the top 4 cards and exile one of them under this. And when an opponent takes 7 or more damage in a turn, you can pay 1 red and tap this to cast the card Hideaway for free. And opponents taking 7 damage is pretty common in our deck. And also it works when your opponents attack each other. So it's just a free value, free spell that you can drop. And imagine dropping a mana doubler or something like a Chandra's Ignition from this is huge. Winding Canyons, once again, flash, instant speed is excellent. And our commander is better protected if you can flash it in. Right? Flash our commander in and then untap for a big burn spell. So we are protected from sorcery speed removals, and we have indestructible. This makes it pretty safe. Like our commander will probably stick if you do that combination. In Adventurous Fair, I'm going to be honest, this is used for tutoring for the One Ring, basically. But in a pinch, you can also get Oblivion Stone or something like a mana doubler. Yeah, just some incremental value we have. Temple of the False God. Again, this card is a bit controversial, but in our decks, we are patient, we have time, and we have lots of ways to make sure we hit our land drops. So chances are we're not going to be stuck with this and not be able to use the mana ability. And yeah, land adding 2 mana is good. It's excellent. Solkanzan, Crucible of Defiance. Now, this doesn't synergize much with our deck. The only use, I guess, because when we get pressured, we don't play a lot of creatures. We get pressured, we can use this to chump block. And also, if our opponents are playing, say, a Fleshbake Marauder, they're edicting us, we can, in a pinch, discard this to have some plotters. And also, it enters untapped, so it's basically a mountain. Myriad Landscape Ramp. Again, our deck is not fast. We can afford to take some time to ramp to have lands enter tapped. So, it's good. Obscure Go Entertainment, this card is amazing. Because it's a graveyard hit, it's a scavenger's ground, which I think we also have. But at the same time, you can pay 3 mana, scavenge, exile the graveyards, but also you get to return a historic card from your graveyard. Now this includes our commander, Ugin, any of the artifacts. I mean, if the One Ring gets blown up, yay, we get it back. Yeah, this card is a ridiculous value. Strip Mine, just because lands are getting better and better nowadays. People with their Gaia's Kratos and Cabal Coffers and Maze of Iths, yeah, we gotta build them up. Drowning Heart Temple, this is because we discard, right? If we discard something, we want to discard this to our commander's ability, and we can pay 3 then to rep. So it's got great synergy with what we're doing. Scavenger Grounds, like I said earlier, Graveyard Hate is necessary. We need them in every deck. And yeah, ideally we want them in lands. Command Beacon, if our commander gets too expensive, we do need to use this to bring him back. Junktown. Yeah, this is for when we are flooded, we get all the ramp, but no gas. We can sacrifice this, it's expensive, but end of turn do this, and we can exile 3 cards from the top of our deck. And this can definitely bring us back into the game if we are flooded. Mines of Moria, we can pay 4 mana and exile 3 cards to create 2 treasure tokens. This fits perfectly into our strategy. Build, 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 and boom. Is that it? That's it. Now, basics. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 basics. It's a bit high, but because we have all the mana doublers and all that, so basic count is kind of relevant. And that's all. That is the entire deck. So yeah, there you have it. This is the Sulfium deck, and this is my best attempt at building a mono-red deck, mono-red burn deck that can keep up with the most powerful non-CDH builds. Can it? We will find out. Actually, we will find out on this channel. We'll do so. I have something pretty interesting planned. But yeah, the game plan is fairly clear, straightforward. Do not overcommit. Do not try to avoid conflict if possible. Build and catch people by surprise. Yeah, thank you for watching. And again, please subscribe and like, and let me know if this style video is something you'd like to see, or do you prefer me to just, because there's some glare on the sleeves, and there's a pretty different setting than the usual deck tech videos, but I like it just because it's like, I feel like I'm playing, I'm at the LGS chatting with a friend, and it's a different vibe. Let me know. See you.